Hello, friends. We are here again at American Zarathustra. This broadcast will be unlike anything I've ever done, and I'll probably never do anything like this again. Um, I'm going to share my past life regression hypnosis experience with you guys. So that's not related to the kind of work that I do on this channel or the theme of this channel. It's deeply related to my life and the things that I've done in my life. So I'm going to approach this just very clinically and just explain the background, if you want to call it the science behind it, and my background that prepared me for this experience. And then you guys just take away what you can from it. So to start off with, I studied Buddhism for decades, for a long time. That's a long story. I was coping with my father's death when I was young, needed answers. I found it very, very, very useful, beneficial, and helpful to me. So it's the study of the mind. It's also about controlling the mind in a way that is natural. And then through that experience, you expand your understanding of your own life, the cosmos, relationships, karma, all these kinds of things. So I want to state that I'm not trying to sell anything to anybody. I'm not trying to convert anybody to anything. That's not my mission at all whatsoever. I think one's spiritual path is very, very private and intimate. I'm only sharing these things to see if that has any benefit. This isn't really the kind of topic that even exists in our sphere, in the white positive sphere. So, but I'm unique, and so I'm going to share what I have. So with that said, I wish that people can find what it is they're looking for. I don't have any kind of, again, like ego or mission to change anybody or sell anybody anything. So I'm simply just sharing my personal experience. So in my time studying Eastern philosophy, I did something called Qigong, which I'll tell you what, I'll get into the slideshow here, and that'll kind of preface everything. So you have some nice visuals to go along with this. So when you think about meditation and the nature of the mind, you think of, for example, if I said, there's a spider in your hair, what would you do? Immediately you would have a physiological reaction to that, or you might jump, and you might, feel afraid or something. So what you believe is reality, in a sense, right? So the question of what is reality is going to come up a lot in this topic, and rather in this show. So, excuse me. So reality is very difficult to isolate what that is, but we first must understand the tool of perception, which of course is our mind, our senses. So imagination and vision and visualization is an extremely important part of the Eastern practice. And it's essentially the technology of the brain. When you visualize an outcome as very powerfully and clearly, then you can experience that reality. Just like I said, if I said, oh, there's a spider in your hair, immediately you'd jump and you'd have a physiological reaction to that. Well, in this case, in certain spiritual traditions, there's a connection to a whole cosmology, and you practice memorizing, for example, this image. Now imagine memorizing every inch of this image so that when you meditate, you use it as a vehicle for transformation. That's some extremely high level visualization skills right there. So I have a background in that. So let's move on a little bit here with the other slides here. In my lifetime, when my dad passed away when I was younger, I believe that his soul visited me in my dreams. And that made me believe that dreams are a portal for spirits to come and go. And since I did my practice I don't know why this happened, but throughout my life, I've been visited by various beings in my dreams. And I'm just stating what I experienced. So in a dream, you have these kind of NPC characters that aren't real. They don't react. They don't have, they're just kind of part of the dream stuff, But then have you ever met a being in your dream that has its own ideas and is interacting with you, and you recognize that it has autonomy and consciousness in some sense? So that's happened to me, but in many ways, it's been a bad experience. So I've learned how to cope with those things. Anyway, this is just another aspect of the whole picture that I'm pointing out. So one of the things that I learned in Asia is called Qigong, which is energy work in English. And Qi, by the way, I've discovered recently is basically the Chinese word for vril, V-R-I-L. So I think people in the white positive sphere who are interested in esotericism should take some time to understand what Qi is, how to use it, if it's in fact vril. Vril energy is it's essentially prana or life force. You could, if you were a scientist, you would call it bioelectric energy. But this bioelectric energy moves around your body on its own, like your blood or your nervous system, and has its own autonomy in a way. But at the same time, you can use your consciousness to control it. When you see people breaking bricks with their hands, it's because they've put Qi in their hand, and so that they're able to do that. Or if you see someone healing with their hands, you've heard of Reiki and these kinds of things, that's using Qi. It's a long, long story. I'm not going to make the whole show about Qigong, acupuncture, Chinese medicine, etc. However, again, this is a practice I did for many years that requires intense visualization skills. So here's the point, visualization skills, right? Okay, you've heard about the chakras, the energy centers in the body. You use your visualization and your intent and your breath to activate these centers. So this is, again, more examples of the power of visualization. So here's, I think, a lovely image that kind of demonstrates some of the ideas that I was just talking about. So in addition to those things, I found out about lucid dreaming. So lucid dreaming is exactly that. It's waking up inside your dream. We all dream at night. Many of us don't remember them, but there's something about the mind and the subconscious. Again, who knows? In 100 years, they might say, "Oh, so the concept of the subconscious was false. It's actually X." And who knows? But anyway, we all go into that inner world every single night of our lives, right? And we dream, and your mind creates a world, and you interact with that world. So that is another aspect of your consciousness. So, for example, if I told you to visualize your kitchen right now, really, really, really focus on look around your kitchen. What does everything look like? So you can visualize that. It's an actual place. Or I could ask you, recall a happy memory from your childhood. What was the most wonderful memory from your childhood? And you can recall that, and with your sort of third eye, you can see it in your mind. Now, that may or may not be fuzzy. It may or may not even be accurate. People sometimes add things or subtract things to their memory over the years, but it's a function of the mind. And so that's what this is all about. Now, so I'll continue here. You've seen the movie Inception, and he uses this little top to kind of tell him if he's dreaming or not. It's an interesting device. So in lucid dreaming, when you're awake, you look at your hands and you concentrate. This is a practice. You concentrate on seeing and memorizing every different nook and cranny of all the lines in your hands. And then when you're sleeping and you become aware that you're dreaming, look at your hands in your dream. Focus really hard on seeing all those lines in your hands, and then that is one method of triggering lucid dreaming, so that you take your memorization, your visualization, and your essentially your mind to activate full consciousness within a dream. So that is a very strange and wonderful experience. Could be negative or positive, but that's another topic. Anyway, I'm just explaining my background in these mind studies and consciousness studies. So at some point, though, I had two involuntary out-of-body experiences that were very amazing, and I knew that I would die if I did not return to my body. So that's another story for another time. I don't really want to get into the details of that, but I'll just explain or claim that this has happened to me. So in the session, I'm very excited about this session. I want to experience it. I'm no master. I'm no like Qigong master or Buddhist meditation master. I have like decades of experience with it, but I'm kind of rusty, let's put it. So when the person doing the therapy with me talked me down, excuse me, I kind of used this visualization. By the way, I'll take questions at the end. I'm just going to tell the whole story. Okay. So this is essentially how I visualized myself. So you're doing breathing exercises, and you're going from your feet to your head, relaxing every part of your body. And you really do genuinely let go, and you feel sort of like you're floating. You feel deep, deep, deep relaxation. And then you do it again, and then again, and then again, and then again. So to the point where what you're doing is inducing a trance. So meditation is a self-induced trance, okay? It's not some hokey-pokey, wishy-washy, goofy new age thing. It's an actual state of mind where you change your brain waves. I don't know what exactly, if it's theta or gamma. I could look that up. Anyway, it's in a sense a state of lucid dreaming where you are profoundly relaxed, and you're releasing yourself so that you're open to your mind, kind of whatever comes to your mind. So as I went through this experience, and I attained this trance state, I can hear, of course, the guide, and I'm asked questions throughout the experience. Where are you? What do you see? What's happening? What does it mean to you? Do you know this person? How old are you? Where are you? What are you dressed like? Are you married? Etc. All these kinds of things. So you can't be so deep into a trance where you can't talk. And actually, I found that to be the hardest part of it. So what the image that emerged in my mind in this trance state was that I was living in India in ancient times. I didn't know when it was. I didn't know the year. And there was a temple that looked similar to this temple, but it was much, much more, kind of super, super old and dilapidated. The jungle was much higher and grown around it. It was darker. And I was obsessed with this temple. I didn't know what it was. I tried going inside it, but it was too dark. I couldn't see. I then was asked about my family, and then my family appeared to me at that time in this supposed past life. And they were very deeply concerned about me going to this temple. They didn't want me to do that. And at the end of the session, I essentially learned that this was a kind of a theme throughout my life, and perhaps these ancient lives, is this desire for kind of spiritual wisdom, transcendent wisdom. And later in the session, I was at my wedding, and it was a joyous experience. People singing and dancing. My beautiful wife. and I had some level of authority in this village. It was a village. I had not a crown, but some kind of maybe like a chieftain style hat. This image would be more modern, like the actual time frame was much earlier than this. And then at some point I was standing over an army of the men in my village. They're extremely angry and they were all armed and we were ready to go to war. And at this point in the trance, I began to weep. I began to cry because I knew that so many of my brothers and my family were going to die. And I felt it is inevitable that we have to go to war, but I was like profoundly saddened by it. And I was asked, did you die in battle? And the answer was no. However, another part of my dream was being along a river in which there were these cremations happening. And it was a sort of a meditation on death and the meaning of death and what is the meaning of death and why, how does it play into our life and our experience? And so these images are really just things I pulled off the internet to try to help you guys along the storyline here. So there was a pretty profound sense of sadness, but at the same time, a longing for truth, a longing for understanding, and a kind of a cosmic thread, if you will. So that, let me go back. They finally, I was asked, how did you die? Like we're moving forward into your life to your deathbed. Where are you? And it turned out that I was inside this temple, surrounded by my family. And I experienced the moment of death through this past life transgression. Transgression, is that the word? Regression, sorry. And it was it's death, but at the same time, I think there's a certain enlightenment that I felt upon death, a knowing, like the answers that I was seeking throughout my life came to me on my deathbed. So we moved on to another life. You basically, after you die, you go through this visualization process where you're in the womb again, and then you emerge through the light. And that's another thing I should say is that I did actually experience hypnosis many years earlier, and it was actually a near-death experience. I think it was a kind of a foolish thing for me to do because I did see a kind of swirling tunnel with a light at the end of it, and I felt that my spirit was being pulled out of my body, and so I snapped out of it to stop that experience. So that happened, and so anyway, I moved on to the next life, and it occurred to me that I was in England or France during the 1886, and that I was a doctor, and I looked something like this. And so when I arrived in this memory of a past life, if it is real, I was, in this kind of like very dirty, poor section of town, highly industrialized. It's nighttime, raining. My boots were covered with mud. And I remember finding a kind of a street woman. I don't know what to call her, like a widow or somebody who's homeless with a child. The child that was younger was an infant, or maybe 1 or 2 years old. And she was looking at me very, very longingly for help. And her eyes were really deeply moved me. And I had this sensation that was my sister in my real life today, and that we were connected in this sense. And she was seeking help, So I had this deep frustration, this intense frustration about all these poor people and how they're all suffering so badly, and how I'm a doctor, so my mission is to save lives and to help people alleviate suffering. And I'm so angry, and how do I fix this? And so the next vision that came to me, and these visions, or whatever you want to call them, these images, these places, it's very much like in a lucid dream. But maybe more like a memory. Lucid dreams are actually much more clear. These are more like memories. Memories are, they're kind of not clear. You can't see everything. You might like see one thing really clearly, but everything around it is kind of vague. So I found myself in a very tall, dark cathedral at night. There was some kind of a service going on. There was a priest at the altar, candles everywhere. It was very dour. It was very kind of serious and very, dour is the word, like a sort of a sad, heavy. It wasn't a funeral, but it just had that heavy, dark feeling to it. And I remember approaching this priest, feeling very angry at him. I want answers, and my question was, why does God allow all this suffering to happen? And you are responsible for answering this question. So it's very intense. I got only so close to the altar, and then another vision came to me for a different time in my life. There were other things that occurred in that, but that was kind of the main event of that experience. I was surprised to know that I was born in 1886, or that the year was 1886. And then I moved again to the next life. And I was somewhere in Russia. I would say somewhere around here. I know that I was living in a very, like, the plains, kind of in like prehistory. I don't know what time it was, but I believe that I was a hunter and a trader along the Silk Road. And so that was, I was asked, of course, what do you look like? What are you dressed as? What are you holding in your hand? I had an arrow, a bow in my hand. I was dressed quite beautifully, like in when I was having these memories of life in India, if they're in fact memories. And I was dressed very plainly, just, sandals and a cloth around my waist. And then I had some jewelry and this chieftain hat. But in here, I was dressed, I recall, in red and green, lots of patterns. And everyone in the village had these beautiful kinds of clothing on that were very similar to this. So anyway, that happened. There was beautiful women there. I had red hair as well. I had long red hair. And so I began trading with what I believe would be the Mongols. And in these past life memories, it showed me that I gained the friendship of a specific Mongolian guy who I did trading with. And he took me back to his village where they did singing and dancing around a fire. And it was just very joyous, and we became friends. And then later in that lifetime, I had memories of meeting their elders and learning their language. And then the person talking me through this experience asked me, how did I die? And my memory was that I was running away on a horse, and that this friend, this Mongolian friend, shot me with an arrow that went in between my ribs on my right side, but it knocked me off my horse. And it was the fall from the horse that killed me. And I basically went in my memory back to, this is sort of more of I don't know how to explain this. I visualized holding that friend and saying, I forgive you, go free, let it go. I love you. I forgive you. You are free, go free. And he was crying and I was crying. And this is a very intense experience. So the thing of it is to let go of these things. These are kind of karmic sort of beads along the life that you've lived throughout many incarnations. So letting go of that karma is a very healthy thing, and that's done through forgiveness. Is this real? Is this real memories from past lives, or is it the subconscious mind fabricating an experience that is, when you're that, it's like, is a dream real? Well, yes and no. Yes, it's real because you're experiencing it, and it's happening. And no, you can't hold it in your hand and measure it with a ruler. You know what I'm saying? So there's more to reality than the physical reality. And it's an important part of our human experience. I have enough background in the study of the mind, meditation, lucid dreaming, out-of-body experience, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, Qigong, that, and visitation by spirits in my dreams, that to me, this is all very natural. This is not weird or like, new agey or spooky or anything. It's just a natural thing. It's just totally natural. So that's why I don't have any need to sell these ideas to anybody. You only you can live your life, and only you can die your death. And how you do that, only you can do that. Nobody can change that or experience that for you. So everyone's personal path is their own, and it's very intimate and personal. Hopefully we can help each other and share ideas or experiences that will help us grow on that path. I'm really shortening. This was a 2-hour session, and I just explained it in like 25 minutes. So there was much more that happened, some of which I don't want to tell because it's extremely personal. I definitely cried a few times throughout the experience. And when I was coming back to consciousness, coming out of the self-induced trance, a lot of epiphanies happened where I understood, certain family relationships that I need to heal, that I need to work on or help. I discovered why I am the way I am, how I became who I am, and etc. from these narratives. And there's no way to describe the profound peace that I felt, the totality of the peace that I felt throughout my entire being, of which I've been stressing so hard about the way of the world right now. We all know how bad and insane things are, and we're all terrified about where things are going. So I internalize all that, and it's unhealthy. It's at very, very unhealthy levels. So doing this past life regression hypnosis was profoundly healing, and that's that. So I came back to normal brainwave consciousness, and you don't just pop out of this stuff. You gotta cool down, basically. So it took me some time to transition. Now there's a recording. The session was all recorded, and I have the recording. But I'm mumbling so low, so quietly throughout the experience as I'm being asked questions that you can't really hear it very well in the audio. In order to maintain and sustain a deep trance while answering questions, it's very, very hard to do that. You don't want to wake up out of it. You want to stay down. And so that's kind of why I was sort of mumbling so quietly to answer the questions. Regardless, that's why I'm not going to play the recording. Plus, there's a lot of private information in there. But in the end, though, this is kind of the feeling that you come out, or that I came out with, quite enlightened, and it's beyond words. When I finally opened my eyes and I saw the physical world, I experienced it acutely like a memory. So imagine you're looking at your screen right now, you're in a room right now somewhere, and if you close your eyes just for a few seconds and then you open them, and you feel and as if you knew for a fact this is a memory, but it's actually the 3D reality you're living in. That is exactly how I was experiencing it. And that stayed with me for, like, it slowly faded off, but that stayed with me for, I don't know, maybe 45 minutes. And when it finally faded away, I was quite at peace, quite happy on so many profound levels that I had kind of put pieces together of my life that I needed. I had the deepest sense of timelessness, that there is no time. I finally knew through physical experience the illusion of time. And that's a very weird and hard thing to say, because time is part of the fabric of the third dimension, which we're living in now. But it's not in the fourth and fifth and other dimensions that are people postulate about. So to have stepped outside of that and then back in, I just can't. There's just no way to express the real physiological experience of that. It's beyond beautiful. It's bliss. I think bliss is the word that they use for that. And I was in this sustained experience of bliss. When I first came out of it, when I first opened my eyes, it was almost shocking to me. Reality was so beautiful and so clear, so pristine. And I actually had to close my eyes again to stop it, because it was so beautiful. It was so overwhelming. And I'm just sitting in an old house with, some curtains, and there were green trees outside, and it was very comfortable, and it's just an average normal thing, but it was intense bliss. So I finally opened my eyes and let it sustain, and I needed time to process all this. I couldn't. Actually, it took me hours to really get over the whole thing. Get over is not the right terminology, but to kind of come back to reality. And so once again, what is reality? It's very, very essential that we study consciousness. Understand that, the brain is an organ. The mind is a system of neurons and connections between all these neurons, memories, thoughts, ideas, feelings, beliefs, and understand the tool, or I'll say in a sense, the tool of the brain and the mind, and then learn how to master that, and then also to see how it interacts with the reality around us, on a purely energetic level, but also on a karmic level. I had a conversation with somebody the other day who traveled to the East, and he thought, he bought into that whole, like, if I travel to the East, then I'll find peace and healing, and it turned out to be the total opposite. It's just a dung hole of like poverty and no civilization, the place where he is. And now he wants to get the heck out of there. It was worse than what he imagined. So I told him, listen, it's not where you go, it's who you are. It's not where you are, it's who you are. And you can be anywhere to find and to go inside and cope with those things. So that's something to think about and to talk about. I think what I'll do now is take some questions, if anybody has any, in the chat. So this is where you should put the music on, and waiting. I guess no questions. Well, there you are. So if you have questions, I'll give you a second to pop it in. But otherwise, I know some of this stuff is crazy and profound. Okay, Vigoda is asking, American Zarathustra, are you going to open the broadcast? Holy fuck. I just said fuck, sorry. Am I going to open the broadcast? I'm broadcasting now. Somebody say something in the chat to tell me you can hear it, because I hit the begin button. Good to hear you. Are you okay, that's confusing. It sounds like I just spoke to myself for the whole time. Can you hear me? Were there any reoccurring characters in the memories? So all good. Thank you, CG. That was completely confusing. Open the broadcast. I don't understand what that question means. So, because I'm broadcasting now. What was the question? Were there any reoccurring characters in the memories? My sister, I saw my sister in different incarnations. And that surprised me. There's my wife in India is a woman that I know now. And I'm not going to tell her that. I might at some point, but I'm afraid it'll freak her out. I have to kind of feel that out. Was there a sense that your past lives were heading somewhere, or were you simply in samsara? We are in samsara, and I know what samsara is. That's the cycle of life. For those who don't know what that means, it means the purpose of Buddhism is to free people from the cycle of life and death and reincarnation. That's, in a nutshell, that's all that it's about. And so that's called samsara. So yes, I'm acutely aware of it now, but I was very much aware of it then in these experiences too. Yankee Apple, was there a sense that your past lives were heading somewhere, or were you? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm repeating myself. I think for me, the session taught me where all this was leading. You know, one of the questions I have is, why did I start in the ancient past, come to the 18th century, and then go back to the ancient past? I don't know why. That's curious. Ancestral Weapons asks, I arrived late. Was the process done in person or online? It was in person. Over the summer, I met a woman who is part of an international organization that does past life regression hypnosis. There's a whole system to it. I will have to find I've been watching videos by the people that run that institute. And so to get familiar with it, you know, I'll have to find those videos and put it like in the show notes for you guys. So if anyone's interested, I can at least, it's a profoundly deep topic. So Vagoda's, what I was going to ask is if you give a link to the comments to broadcast so more people can talk. I don't, and you can email me, or, you know, I'll just put, I don't know, anybody can ask me anything. I'll just put my email in the chat, americanzarathustra@gmail.com. And again, I'm not trying to sell anybody anything. That means, I mean, I pray for you. I love you. I hope that you become one with the divine, and in your own way, in your own time. It's, you know, like I said, we are all on our own journeys. We can help each other, but only you can live your life, and only you can die your death. Are there any other questions? Because I think I'll maybe wrap it up. I'm sure there's something that I'm forgetting, and when I'm finished, I'll be like, oh, why didn't I say that? But it was profound. The healing and the peace that I felt was so necessary, because I've been bordering on like cracking, basically, from the stress of what's going on in our world, and so the timing was like just in time, per se. So I feel completely refreshed. I recognize these horrible things happening in the world, and I do feel them deeply, but I'm not going to allow them to kind of damage me, you know, as they were. So Vagoda is asking, by the way, did you happen to be in the Middle East? I've never been in the Middle East, and frankly, I don't think I would ever go there. I would be terrified for my life. All Muslim countries are out of bounds for me. Any other questions, or you guys want to wrap it up? I want to thank you all for coming. It's very, very kind of you, gracious of you. Usually people will see these videos later and then add questions. Am I a Buddhist? That's, I practiced Buddhism. This is a good story. This is a relevant story. So, okay, when I was 14, my dad had a massive heart attack. He died and came back to life. That sounds crazy, but he was clinically dead. They gave him the defibrillators, got his heart started again. For 4 years, we were told that he would die in a week or in a month. And so for 4 years, I lived in intense trauma and agony over my dad dying. And so I needed answers, and I broke out of my normal religious scope and started researching things, and I've eventually found Buddhism. And it seemed to me very, very intuitive and normal and natural. And so that was the beginning of that journey. Now, when you're 18 and you're studying Buddhism, it's different than being, say, 30 or 35 or something, because you are mentally and emotionally growing and maturing. You can't actually understand everything, and you have a lot to do, that, et cetera, et cetera. So over the years, I lived in Japan, studied Zen Buddhism there, both the meditation and sort of scripture and philosophy. I went to Shaolin Temple in New York City for 3 years, where I learned Qigong. My practice of Buddhism was much deeper through Chinese Buddhism. Taoism, I started learning about Taoism. Then I moved to Taiwan, continued my studies. When I came back, I joined a Tibetan school, and I studied Tibetan Buddhism for 10 years. So, but am I a Buddhist? So I'm of the thinking that if you want to call yourself a Buddhist, you should become a monk, because it's, Buddhists will say, no, that's not true. You can be a lay Buddhist, and you can still practice and have a life. And then there's schools of Buddhism that say you should not become a monk. You should stay in this life, because this is where all the stuff is. Like you work through your karma in the mundane world. So it's in my blood, it's in my DNA. But I'm expanding my view into Western esotericism now, Gnosticism, Hermeticism. And I'm only studying these things. I can't claim to be them, but I'm finding that Buddhism overlaps very, very much into Western esotericism. Okay, Yankee Apple. Was there a clear refinement of your being going from life to life, or was it nonlinear and cyclical without a goal? It's kind of like being on a river, and you just flow. You go where the river takes you. There was a linear pattern because of the questions that I was being asked. The person guiding me through this experience let's start off, where are you? What do you look like? What's your name? What year is it? Are you male or female? How are you dressed? Are you holding anything? Who are the people around you? And so you get oriented in a sense. And then she would ask, okay, and then the memories would just come, like any memories, right? You can be driving your car home from work, and spontaneous memories just fly into your mind. It's the nature of the mind. So I can't say, I think it's kind of linear in a way. Vagoda asks, Americans are Zarathustra, not all countries in the Middle East are Muslim. Okay, well, that's a topic for another thing. There's aspects of the Middle East that I'm really, really interested in, but I would never go to a Muslim country. Seven Serpents, probably a question. Have you, Wing It Productions, have you ever been exposed to the Krishna consciousness? I can't say that I fully know what that is, so I can't give a good answer to that. I tell people I'm an Odinist to be a curmudgeon. Well, so this is my question for every religion, is what is the spiritual technology of your path? What is the spiritual technology of your path? How do you do it? Like, how do I become like the best Christian that could ever be? How do I become the best Taoist or blah, blah, blah? I won't talk about Islam or Judaism in this show, but to me, that is the essential question: is that there's some kind of physiological change. Faith is, I'd say, probably one of the most powerful spiritual technologies out there, and it's part of the structure of the mind. Buddhism has some of those kinds of techniques. There's something called Amitabha Buddhism or Amida Buddhism in Japan, where you chant the name of a certain bodhisattva called Amitabha. He was the student of Buddha. So imagine if, say, I don't know, Peter, Simon Peter had his own sect of Christianity. And he promised that he would save all Christians if they chanted his name with total sincerity. You know, like that's kind of what Amitabha Buddhism is. And it's served me very, very well throughout my life. The traditional Aryan religion answer would be praxis. So any other questions? I don't kind of want to be floating out here. If you guys want to get into it, I'm happy to go there. So anyway, God bless you then. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, you can easily contact me, or you can put your questions below the show. So there it is, and there you go. And we'll see you later on the internets. God bless.